All right, we're going to start today on slide number 138, and we're going through 168. Environmental and genetic factors. What does environmental mean? Yeah, Gunnar.
Weather, what type, like if there's clay in the ground,
Yes.
dirt.
Everything around us is our environment. Our environment at this moment is this classroom. So it's all of your surroundings. That can include, the weather, the temperature, whether you're outside, inside. If your environment is, you're a bird, it would be, in a nest, in a tree, what have you. What are genetic factors? What does that mean? Go ahead, Gunnar.
Like your characteristics.
That you get from where?
Your parents.
Parents. So these are the DNA that has been passed to you from your parents. Sponges. Remember we talked about why the difference in size. These are smaller because they're laying on their side and they don't get as much food. These are bigger because as food floats down through the ocean water, it goes directly into the sponge. They are genetically identical even though they are different sizes. Okay, which is what that says. The environment affected the sponge's growth. We can only guess that water currents or position of the sponge relative to the rest change the pattern of growth. The top three are in better position to catch falling food, therefore they've grown much larger. Sponges are filter feeders, meaning just whatever falls through the ocean water, that's how they get their food. They have tiny cells. This should be sweep water through their bodies. They are able to digest any organic pieces that are floating in the water. Therefore, most sponges have mouths that point upward to catch that stuff that falls down. The genetics of these sponges also said grow straight up. That's what they're supposed to do. That's not exactly what always happens. The environment affected how they grew. What is something in the water that caused these to be flat instead of upright? What do you think? Mm-hmm.
I guess pressure, like the water pushing.
Yeah, the water pushing on it, of course, the difference in the currents, which is the environment influenced the growth in a way that different than their genetic code. So the current of the water started to slightly push them over so that their environment changed, even though their genetics says you're going to grow straight up and down. This is, as you can see, this tree literally, it's like the trunk is here and it goes all the way over. And what do you think made that tree grow like that? Go ahead.
The way that the sun was moving.
Possibly, but even more so than that, what do you think? Wind. If you because it's kind of like in a prairie setting. So that wind is constantly pushing that tree that direction that it eventually affected the way that tree grows. The environment plays a role in gene expression. Traits do not always appear in the expected way. This tree should have grown straight up and down. That's what trees do. But the wind and other environmental factors caused it to grow sideways. I think this is really interesting right here. Both alligators and sea turtles are affected by the environment in an interesting way. The temperature of the nest decides if they're going to be male or female. I mean, that is wild to me. Cooler temperatures produce males. Warmer or higher temperatures produce female turtles. The pattern is reversed, just FYI, in alligators. Wind, temperature, and waves are blank in the environment. Chemical factors, physical factors, biological factors, or none? What do you think? Wind, temperature, and waves. Go ahead. Physical? Sounds good to me. Nurture versus nature. Okay. There's been lots of studies done, especially even with people. Okay, if you have a set of twins, okay, and they are separated at birth. One goes to a family where they're very well taken care of. They have nutritious meals. They're have good health care. They live in a nice, caring home. And then you have a case where, okay, you take this twin who should be very genetically similar. You put them in another home where they're not well taken care of. They're not fed. They're not, taken to the doctor for regular checkups. Maybe they're even in an abusive home. Will those two twins turn out the same?
No.
Because what has won out here? Nurture versus nature. Being taken care of versus what your genetics are. Okay? That's kind of what we're going to talk about. This is on plants, but we can also apply that to animals as well. Scientists have argued for years about which is more important. Nature, which is your genetic traits, or nurture, the conditions of your surroundings. So this is like environment. This is your genetics or your DNA. Nature and nurture affect all living things. Hydrangea, you see them a lot of times like in the spring. They're like we call them like almost look like a snowball bush kind of. Okay. Hydrangea is a bush with many flowers. They grow pink or purple depending on the soil, which I think that is interesting. Iron in the soil is responsible for changing the color. In the same bush, we see different expressions of genes. The environment plays a role. If the environment lacks certain nutrients, genes are not expressed. So, if you are living in an environment where you're not getting the healthcare, vitamins, healthy food, you are not going to, develop as well as someone who is getting the proper healthcare, healthy foods and being taken care of. This chicken is lacking a certain vitamin, okay? You can see it has affected the way that chicken grows. Drought. So here you have children who are, not healthy. They're not growing correctly because they're not receiving the nutritious food that they need. Vitamins and nutrients are blank in the environment. Chemical, physical, biological, or none? Go ahead. Chemical. Sounds good to me. I'm not sure how far I was supposed to go. 68. Okay. The environment plays a role. Plants grow where their seed lands. Okay. So we talked about the little helicopters, when they spin down. Okay. Yeah. Of these two little helicopters, you have a helicopter that lands here and one that lands out here. Right or left? The one on the right or the one on the left? Which one is going to have the better chance of survival?
The right one.
Why?
Because it has more sunlight. There's not other plants blocking the sunlight.
Very good. This seed over here isn't going to have competition for water, sunlight. This one is going to have a lot of competition for water and sunlight because this mature tree is going to suck all the water out of the ground. It's going to get all the sunlight, and it's actually putting a shadow or casting shade over this one. So this one is going to have a much better chance of survival. The environment plays a role. Okay, if I put 3 goldfish in a little bowl at my house, they're not going to get very big. If I were to put 3 goldfish in a 50-gallon tank, those goldfish are going to grow much larger because they are not in competition with each other for space and for food, which is basically what that says. Crowding, competition for food, and sunlight. Is that chemical, physical, or biological factors? Go ahead, anybody. Biological? It is. This is a very interesting part of this one. I really like it. This has to do with a study they did of Yellowstone National Park. This was when the very early years when the national park had just first opened. People did not realize the dangers that, yes, this is a park, but these are still wild animals. It's not like they're at the zoo, when you go and, you can feed animals at the zoo and they're behind cages. This is not like this. Anybody ever been to Yellowstone? I have. If you ever get the opportunity, I highly encourage it. It was an excellent experience. A carefully documented case of cause and effect between living organisms and the environment in Yellowstone National Park. Yellowstone is over 2 million acres. It was the first national park in the world. It has a complicated ecosystem and many animals, including wolves, bears, elk, and bison. Okay, in the beginning, people didn't know how to act around wild animals. They thought they were just like pets or like an animal you might see at the zoo. They fed the bears. They tried to find and play with baby wolves. And the people were injured and killed. Why?
Like,
play with babies.
Because they tried to play with baby animals. What's going to happen when the mom sees these, she doesn't know that they're just playing. What does she think?
They're
They're going
to
Yeah, they're going to eat them off. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm there.
People didn't understand how wild animals worked. The bears would sit, the people would toss them a sandwich. The bear didn't understand when the people said, I'm out of sandwiches, I don't have any more. So then the bears were like, well, what the heck, where's the food? You must have more. So the bears would literally attack the people when they were out of sandwiches to throw. People wanted to pet and play with the cubs, which was okay until Mama Bear says, no, that's not working. The animal's instinct is the people were trying to hurt their babies. So, the park says, oh, this is bad. We got to get rid of all these bad animals. We're going to just get rid of all of the predators in the entire park.
That's a no-no.
Yeah. So the tourists were like, okay, so the tourists are more important. We've got to get rid of these evil, terrible animals. So they killed all of the wolves, coyotes, bears, and mountain lions. By 1926, there were no predators at all in Yellowstone. Do we see some problems happening here?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. They know that they're all
Yep.
gone.
Yeah.
They kill them.
Because they killed
They
them
killed
all.
And if they go walking around and see no one, then they'll shoot it.
Exactly. This was a major change in the environment. Without predators, elk and bison could eat and reproduce more than before. Does that sound bad?
Yeah,
Why is it bad?
because they eat all of the grass.
Uh-huh. So they're going to run out of food real
It's going to
fast.
turn into a desert.
What do you think happened to the elk and bison food? Well, we already said it decreased radically. Elk, bison, and deer have summer food and winter food. Summer food is green plants. Winter food is bark and small